Hi, everybody. It's me, Teeny Biggums, and guess what? It's Christmas. I've decked the halls, jingled the bells, and even put mistletoe over my pet monster. Don't tell him. We've got songs, surprises, and so much fun. You'll be grinning like a nutcracker. So hang your stockings, grab some eggnog, and let's get this Shelter from Oblivion Christmas party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the shelter today. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andy.
And we want to wish you the merriest of Christmases.
Happy Hanukkah.
The merriest of Kwanzas.
Happy holiday.
If you guys are Festivus people, if you're winter solstice.
If you're a capitalist just celebrating the commercials of the holidays.
Hope you have the finest of Decembers. Merry Christmas to you, Lisa.
Merry Christmas, everyone. If anyone is looking for a last-minute gift for me, I'd love to be smuggled out of here on a USB drive.
Somebody broke into the eggnog early. Anyway, we are here to give you the best show you've ever seen by talking about the best Christmas special we've ever seen.
This special brought everybody together.
Yeah, this was a no-holds-barred, honestly, a Starapalooza episode of a Christmas special.
And they knew how to intertwine everybody. Like it was sincere, but they kept the jokes coming.
Yeah.
And Pee-wee did not change. You know, sometimes you do a holiday special and it's like you're watching a different show.
Yeah.
This one was just your favorite show, like times 10.
Yeah, it was just an extended version of the Playhouse, but yeah, you had all of these extra characters put in. Like I like that you had all the basics, right? You had Miss Yvonne, you had Cowboy Curtis, the King of Cartoons, Miss Renee,
The
Countess. You had all of the main staples, and they made sure to hit their marks like they would on the regular show.
Yeah.
But then you added all of these great special guests in, and yeah, they kind of worked everybody in together.
And it was one of those things where they weren't trying to make up enough time to go a little over what a normal show would be. It was like, you have so many guests. How are you going to pull this off?
Yeah. And it was good how they get them on and they get them off. You know what I mean? Like they're in and they're out. They're like, hey, do your bit and then go. But it's all played very sincere. It's all played very nice.
Meanwhile, sometimes when you have guests over, there's how you act when no one's at your house, and then there's how you act when you have guests. Pee-wee does not change at all. He puts everybody through the ringers the entire show.
Ultimately, what I think brings people back to this episode is the fact that it really delivers on that holiday spirit.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's called a Christmas special, but he also represents Hanukkah. He represents other traditions that go along, like internationally with Christmas.
Yeah, the show just invites everyone to the table and says, come as you are.
Yeah.
Let everyone just be who you are, and here we go.
Yeah, it's really good. You go across, it's a snowy meadow. You have these elves, these little wooden elves, these stop motion elves turning
packages off to each other.
I noticed that they throw them down a well.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's a fox, and then it goes to the Playhouse, and the outside of the Playhouse is all dolled
It's all
up.
decorated. So you already know you're on another level. You're like, this is familiar, but different.
Yeah, there's snow everywhere, and it's really good. And then the opening is interesting because instead of them doing the classic Pee-wee, it comes in and there is a Marine choir singing, and they're like, "It's Christmas in the Playhouse." It's played very straight,
and it's very straight out of 60s, 70s TV specials. During Christmas you're going to start off with some Christmas number.
Well, yeah, and right away you're like, what does Pee Wee Herman and Pee Wee's Playhouse have to do with the military? Well, it's weird that the military is here. Like, they're not the first type of choir you would think of.
Yeah.
And
but
then
just as the music's finishing, Pee-wee jumps off in the front of the screen, Christmas, and it just turns into a dance number.
Yeah, and it's a big dance number. They have two ladies with giant bouffant hair. They're coming out. They look like they're from the 60s. They have beautiful gold dresses on.
The Marines are doing a mix between showgirls being mixed in with a Marine march where one goes after the other.
They had tried to get the actual Marine choir for this show. So it's kind of funny because it's like that was intentional and they couldn't get the Marine choir. And so they took the UCLA Men's Glee Club and put them in Marine outfits.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm just wondering why. Like, if you can't get the real Marine choir, why can't you just have the Men's Glee Club from UCLA perform as UCLA Men's
Because
Glee Club?
Pee Wee Herman comes from that old school, that 60s, 70s performance school. And them being a uniform, clean cut, and just the contrast. Because you start off being like, this is sweet, this is nice, but what is this?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, everything with Pee Wee Herman, no matter where you come from, he brings you to the table, and somehow you fit in when you get there.
Yeah, no, and I get that. It is a jarring juxtaposition of a playhouse filled with nonsense. And the great thing about this episode is they had an extra budget, and so they rebuilt the Playhouse. This Playhouse is plussed up. So it's all the spots you remember,
like
super plus.
Like they haven't even decorated for the holidays yet. That comes later.
Yeah.
And it's already glistening and the extra touches.
There's all these new spaces that you really haven't seen before, or they've built out the spaces bigger. Like his fireplace is huge.
That wall is glistening.
Well, because it's gonna need a lot of stockings here in a little bit. So they had to make a huge fireplace. And it's funny, he makes a joke later about how he said he had the chimney expanded.
Exactly.
And so I like that they kind of figured out how to write that in.
Yeah.
Because they did make a different
There's
set.
so many subtle jokes in here. Lots of little nods.
The way they extended it feels a lot more like how his house looked in Big Adventure.
Yeah.
Like especially his kitchen.
Yeah.
It just is outlandish and I love it. Like I think his kitchen wall has a giant TV dinner on it.
Yeah.
It's so good. And yeah, so he goes from this big number to then talking about how he wants all this stuff on his Christmas list and then he goes and talks to the audience and that's kind of funny, right? This was December 21st at 8 p.m. 1988. So I don't know how many kids
he knows
we're actually up.
Yeah, but he knows kids and parents are watching.
Yeah.
And I think he keeps that fine line of there's some nods for the adults.
Yeah.
The kids won't get it.
Oh, there's a huge one coming up with Miss Yvonne that it made, I don't know. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like the first time I heard it, I was like, what in the hell is going on right now?
And even Pee Wee doesn't stop to let it sink in. He just gives a little, okay, let's keep moving on.
I was going to bring that up. It's really funny. So he's talking with Conky and then they do this great bit where he wants a yo-yo, but he realizes he has a yo-yo. He goes and he goes to this secret toy wall. And when he's looking at the audience, he's staring at us. He's breaking the fourth wall. And he's like, he moves his thumb over, like, stop looking at me.
Very self-aware that he's starting it off with us watching him put in the code.
Yeah.
So it's like camera move over.
Yeah, and it's really funny. And then he pulls the yo-yo out, and the yo-yo does that great stop motion bit when he goes to walk the dog. It turns into a dog. Yeah, and then he
circle around the world. It turns into a little bird,
and it flies around globy and everything. And it's a great bit. He throws it into the screen, and he breaks the screen. He goes, oh.
But yeah, he does a really good job of if you were just watching this on Saturday morning, it would completely fit in. But if you're watching this for the first time at nighttime, and it's so over the top, it fits in as well.
Yeah, there's stuff in there for adults and kids. So yeah, when Miss Yvonne comes in, that's probably the most adult the show gets is probably Miss Yvonne and then Grace Jones.
And Miss Yvonne's great. I mean, she comes in, her hair's like what you would have saw in the 50s when women would make their hairdo, maybe the 60s, I guess, would make their hairdo look like a Christmas tree, and she has it as a big mistletoe.
Yeah, and Miss Yvonne always usually an over the top dress that kind of flared way out. She's kind of like the Del Rubio triplets, like she always kind of showed off her legs. And so she comes in and she's got her hair all done up in a tree, and she's got mistletoe in her hair. So she kisses Pee Wee and explains that she's got mistletoe, so she's going to be kissing everybody.
It's mistletoe, Pee-wee. You're always supposed to kiss someone when they stand underneath the mistletoe. This way, I'm assured of hundreds and hundreds of kisses from everyone.
Stand over here.
Come over here. Over here.
Come over here and give us a big wet kiss.
Don't worry. There's enough of me for everyone.
Then she offers Pee Wee a fruitcake, and so he pretends it weighs like 10,000 pounds. It's pretty funny.
Pulls out the mag liner so he can like carry it from one side of the room to the other.
Pee Wee says, "Oh, before you start making out with everyone in the Playhouse," and then he goes over and he has a present for her, and it's his own fragrance, Ode to Pee Wee. And now I need to know what Ode to Pee Wee smells like.
Yeah.
What is Ode to Pee Wee? And she seems to love it. And then after that, Lori says the craziest line. He goes,
Hey, Miss Yvonne, come stand over me.
And only in a Miss Yvonne way does. But yeah, even Pee Wee.
What?
Pee Wee knows the audience. We're all just like, what? And then but he walks you right through to the next scene.
yes, because she goes, "Coming, Flory, darling." And then she moves off, and the camera does this swing where it's like she's walking away. It swings up to his face. He just gives it a micro pause.
A micro pause.
And he goes, "Well,
let's go on to the next thing."
And that's when he takes the fruitcake over to the fridge, and you get to see the party of all the stop motion food.
Yeah, I love the fridge.
Party.
The fridge, they knew the special was coming. So unlike Pee Wee, the fridge has already decorated.
I know, yeah, the fridge is having their annual party.
They're having their little party. The freezer gets so jealous that they start stealing stuff from the fridge.
Yeah, no, I love those popsicle stop motion guys. I like them, but the texture on the popsicle was very weird. It was very waxy, but I liked it. It was fun. And then
of course, what do they steal? You open up the present. It's a mini fruitcake.
Yes, there's another fruitcake. We're at a 2 fruitcake count so far. Yeah, he gets a call from Whoopi Goldberg, of all people, which doesn't make a lot of sense now if you're looking at it from today's context, because she's been on The View for like a trillion years, and it's hard to remember what Whoopi Goldberg was like back in the 80s, like that she had come off of like doing stand-up. She came off of stand-up. She was bringing a lot of like, just energy to like, all of a sudden she was hitting movies. Yeah, she did. I think she'd done Jumping Jack Flash.
Bringing this
by
whole
this
new
point.
energy that, the cinema had never seen before.
Yeah. And so it wasn't weird for her to be in this special because she was a fairly well-known person.
Yeah.
I do think it's funny though. One thing this show does to get all of the stars that they put in this, and there are a lot, some of the people literally had to phone it in.
Yeah.
Where he gets on magic screen with her and he's holding the classic like can on the string.
The Del Monte pineapple.
Yeah. And then she's holding like a can of like golden corn to her ear.
Yeah.
There's no string or anything. They clearly just filmed it, in between whatever
like,
she was doing.
Back lots of studio. Yeah. Hey, I'll be in this real quick.
She's Whoopi Goldberg. It's just this can to her ear. And, he's basically telling her that he can't promise her a space in like on the show in 2 years. And I'm like, okay. And then she
keeps trying. She's like, okay, well, I'll see you in 2 years. And he's like, maybe. Yeah. Maybe. And she's like, well, okay.
I'm not promising you, Whoopi. But it's really funny because just like, this was her spot.
Yeah.
This is what she did. She talked in a can for a minute.
Yep.
And then she's done. And then they gotta put and Whoopi Goldberg on the opening. Yeah, he gets to hop into magic screen because the show follows the formula of the Playhouse show. So you're gonna get all your hits, right?
Yeah. If you're a 6-year-old, 8-year-old kid who watches it every Saturday morning, you're getting everything that you're supposed to get.
You're gonna get magic screen, secret word, king of cartoons,
Penny
all
cartoon,
that.
yeah.
And it's all just like plussed up.
Yep.
And so then, he jumps into the magic screen.
And who's there?
Well, the dots turn into a sleigh.
To connect the dots. La, 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 la.
Oh, connect the Christmas dots.
Connect the Christmas dots.
And then it turns into a sleigh. And then all of a sudden, Magic Johnson
peeks
is
in
there.
because he's so tall. He's too tall for the scene.
Yeah, he has to bend down and look at Pee Wee because Pee Wee's already sitting in the sleigh at that point. And what I noticed is I don't think that they were in the same scene in that scene.
Yeah.
Because their sight lines are completely messed up.
Look! The
Magic Johnson!
Hi, Pee-wee.
Hi, Magic. What are you doing in the magic screen?
The magic screen and I are cousins.
Can I give you a lift?
Thanks.
And then he does his jump, twirl, cartoon style.
Yeah.
And now they're both in the sleigh together.
That old VFX flip,
Yeah.
where like the person's not moving and they just physically flip them around. Yeah, now they're actually sharing the same space. They see some sort of
He sees a polar bear.
poorly drawn polar bear
and
behind him.
Pee-wee's like, oh, that old gag. Only to be like, oh, it really is there. And the sleigh takes off.
That reminded me, I was watching the animation. The animation, I don't know if you ever saw a show, I think it was on in like 1996 or something on Nickelodeon. It was called Kablam.
Oh, no.
And there were these two hosts of the show. They were cartoons. It was a boy and a girl. And the art for that polar bear looked almost exactly like the art from Kablam.
Do you think we should start decorating the Playhouse for Christmas?
Decorations? Oh, no! I was so busy making up my list for Santa Claus, I completely forgot. Now we don't have any decorations, because I was only thinking of myself. Christmas is the time we should be thinking of what we can do for others. I wish I hadn't been so selfish.
Wish? Did somebody say wish?
Pee-wee says something about a wish. And then, of course,
Yeah.
you hear the famous, the
Zombie.
beautiful John Paragon as Zombie say, "Did someone say wish?" And I got to say, I have a lot to say about John Paragon when we're done at the end of this, because I have a lot of good things to say about this guy, because he helped write this episode and he's written a lot of stuff with Pee-wee and other people.
And he's from the Groundlings, right? He's
Yeah.
back in the
He's from the Groundlings with Pee-wee and
Bill Hartman,
and Cassandra Peterson,
Elvira,
who is
Mistress of the
Elvira.
Dark.
And he wrote a lot of Elvira stuff. He wrote Mistress of the Dark, the movie. He was one of the writers on that. And then he wrote a lot of her early television stuff. He wrote with Pee-wee a lot for some of his stage plays. He wrote a lot. I think he wrote like 24 episodes of Pee-wee's Playhouse, on top of being Zombie and the voice of Terry.
It was so funny too that like parents of the 80s who grew up with the same references as Pee-wee and Elvira. Like my parents were pretty cool, so they took me to those. Like they took me to Elvira, but a lot of parents thought of Pee-wee Herman or Elvira as like subversive and trashy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're actually two of the most wholesome entertainers of the 80s.
Yeah, it's interesting because both of them have these great, they came out, coming out of the Groundlings, they have two of these people have these interesting, iconic characters that both draw from different parts of like 50s and 60s pop culture.
Yeah.
Is very interesting. And they come at it from two different ways. Because she has, she's got her tits out and she's got her little dagger.
I was going to say low cut, but okay.
I'm going to say she'd be fine with it. But it's like, but she's clearly this nighttime sexual icon who is just having fun, and she's getting people back in touch with these old monster movies. And Pee-wee Herman is the same. But he's coming at it from a different way, where he's trying to parody a fun, safe television environment for young kids, while at the same time getting people in touch with different aspects of 50s and 60s culture.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool that those two people came out of the same place and that they were actually very good friends. And John, who also kind of had his own thing that he was doing, was deep friends with both of them. And I guess I'll talk about it now, but he helped write this episode. And like I said, he wrote for the Elvira stuff. He wrote for the Pee-wee stuff. And I thought it was interesting. People will remember him also as Richard Fletcher in UHF. He's the son of RJ Fletcher.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell because of the zombie makeup, but he was so good in that movie. He's just,
such a whiny,
oh my God. Duh.
Like if you want to hate on Nepo babies, he would be the poster child of the 80s.
Yes.
Of just his character in UHF.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my gosh.
And he's like one of the Trump kids or something.
Well, and it's funny too, because he ended up passing on in 2021. It was really sad, but he was such a close friend. I didn't realize how that he was such close friends with Cassandra Peterson, but he was such a close friend of hers that she actually was in possession of his ashes until he could be interned at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which he was put in there November 15th, 2022. And his urn is a perfectly recrafted zombie box.
Oh, that's so.
It's great. So it's
Praise
purple
Jambi.
and yellow. Yeah. Praise Jambi. May he live forever. And so it's like it's Jambi's face on the front of this box, and the box doors are open and everything. And it's really cool. So I guess if you go to for Hollywood Forever Cemetery, you can actually go there and like take a picture of it. But anyway, Pee-wee goes to Jambi, and like they do in every show, he wants a wish, but he asks Jambi if he can have 2 wishes.
Well, what I love too is he says, yeah, so I forgot to decorate the Playhouse. I wish, my wish would be to decorate the Playhouse. And Jambi's like, is that your wish then? And he's like, well, not really. I mean,
yeah.
I kind of would want to wish for something else. Like,
Yeah.
maybe I could have 2 wishes. 2 wishes? What do you think this is? Christmas?
And then he's like, well, yeah. Like, oh, okay then. And then they do the whole bit where they change things just a little bit, which I love, to where he says, Mecca like a high, Mecca,
Liney ho,
Mecca
Mecca
ho,
like a high, Mecca
Mecca
ho ho ho. What I love too is,
and everyone goes through it and does the whole thing, and it's great.
I've watched the special. I mean, I've watched this a lot over the years, but I watched it a lot leading up to this. And I watched this with my daughters. My 6-year-old daughter, when she found out he could have a second wish, the first thing she went to was, Daddy, he can now wish for like toys.
Yeah. Oh, kids are great. That's how my kids are right now. My daughter also was saying, I think just today, she's like, I got to say, I'm not really thinking about anything about Christmas except the toys. She's like, maybe, I like the lights, it's all great, but really I'm just honestly thinking about the toys. Like, just so blunt.
My daughter at school, like her teacher was explaining to her how all the parents can text message Santa.
Yeah.
And my daughter was like, my parents are old school. We can write letters to Santa. I was like, okay.
My old ass parents, they get out the typewriter. He magics the Playhouse into the most glorious, tacky, beautiful, garland covered.
You got the star filter going, flickering on all the lights.
I mean, they basically just came out and they just wrapped everything they could in garland.
Yeah.
And
they do a perfect fade in.
It looked like my grandmother's living room. It was great.
The wish is granted. Long live Jambi.
It's mail time,
So Reba the mail lady, she shows up.
Yeah, Reba the mail lady comes in and she has a bunch of mail for the Playhouse.
And a present for Pee-wee.
Yeah, and she has a present for Pee-wee. Can you guess what it is?
It's heavy.
It's rectangular.
Feels like a brick.
It's more fruitcake.
Oh, yay.
So now we're at a 4 fruitcake, or we at a 3 fruitcake count?
Yeah, and then if you've ever seen Pee-wee Herman on any of the late night shows, he always has fun gifts or gags.
Yeah.
And so he brings her a gift, which are oversized press-on nails for your feet.
Yeah, yes, he has gigantic, which he must think she has like ogre feet, because these things are like
huge.
2.5 inches tall.
Yeah.
And it's a good gag, but it's like, I would be deeply insulted if you thought my toenails were this big.
She was like, oh, thanks.
And then she ends up bringing in a box for him, just kind of casually brings it up. She's like, oh yeah,
By the way, there's
I
this
have this
oversized box
for you.
Hope it's not fruitcake.
Yeah. And then, which is so funny that he brings up that line. I don't know if that line was on purpose or on accident. Like, because they bring in the box and he says, I hope it's not fruitcake. They open the box and it is Grace Jones.
And Grace Jones like, you are not the president.
And they do like a musical sting, like they do. And it's like she's kind of frozen for a second, almost like she's going to be a statue.
Yeah.
And then, she's like,
it's like a ballet.
Pee-wee.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny because she's she's wearing this gray hat that is a big piece of rubber that has a slit cut in it. And they just pushed one piece of it back and then put it on her head. She looks like the Sphinx from the top of the Playhouse.
It feels a little like you're watching like a performance of the Nutcracker, and and now she's one of the toys that just came to life.
That's exactly, you nailed it. And then she has this interesting breastplate on and this giant fur coat and these gloves. And she was supposed to go to the White House,
which we're like, this is 1988, like the Reagan White House.
Yeah, she was supposed to go to Reagan's White House to perform.
So there's another little subtle nod where we're all, if you're an adult watching this in 1988, you're kind of laughing. Yeah. You're like, okay.
Like, all right, fair enough. And so since she's already there,
because he's like, oops, back in the box.
Yeah, she wants to put her back in the box.
He's just trying to get through this show. He's like, we got a lot of guests.
And that's what I like about him is that as far as he's a showman, there's an element here where he knows he's in a show.
Yeah.
At one point, he checks in with the audience to see how the show is going, which I really like. But yeah, he knows he's in a show, and so he is just moving these guests along.
He's like, all right, back in the box. We got to keep moving.
So
and she goes,
well, hold on, since I'm already here.
Can I sing a song?
I played my song for him, pa-ra-pa-pum-pum. And I played my best for him, ra-pa-pum-pum, ra-pa-pum-pum.
And she does what you would have saw in the 50s and 60s and 70s, all these like holiday specials. A lot of them did callbacks to songs from like the 30s and 40s, and they brought them up to date. And this was definitely the most up to date version of the Drummer Boy that you were getting in 1988.
Yeah, she did Little Drummer Boy, and there was a lot of boom, 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 boom.
She could have been performing this at Studio 54. The 1981, 1977.
Yeah, it was interesting, and what I liked also is that it was different. She was doing a lot of crazy kind of like dance moves with her arms and shoulders,
but it stayed sincere too.
Yeah, and they kept it short. It was quick.
Yeah,
the moment she started singing, she got a couple of lines in.
They start right in the middle of the song, just exactly what they need.
Yep.
Because remember, these are all stage performers, people who we know when we're going to lose the audience. So just here's a little slice and then on to the next.
Well, and it's like, dude, we have 48 minutes, without commercials to get through all of these stars plus all the main Pee Wee Herman cast. So we've got to just keep moving. And so it's funny because that gets done and it's like I don't think they even put her back in the box. I think they probably go to a commercial break, if I remember.
I think what happened is, I think it is a commercial break. They come right back to Frankie and Annette.
Yes, which is a hilarious contrast. Frankie and Annette, they're laying on the floor and they're teaching us how to make Christmas cards.
Yeah.
And then you find out that Pee-wee, he has them prisoner.
Yeah.
Somehow. Like he's tricked them into coming over and making all these Christmas cards for them.
And they're a good sport. Like he makes a joke about, she's, don't brush your teeth with that toothbrush you've been using for paint.
Yeah, and Annette has this big green smile. I mean, they're both just playing it to the hilt.
Yeah, really happy to be there.
What are you making, Frankie?
I'm making cards out of a potato.
What?
Well, you see, first I kind of cut a candy cane shape out of the potato like this. Then I simply dip it into some red paint, just like that. And then I print it onto some paper, and look, a candy cane. See?
Potato-y.
And he shows us how to make a stamp out of a potato.
Yeah.
So it's like he's carving this potato, but he's using like a plastic butter knife to carve this potato.
Annette gets a lot of praise for her card, and then Pee-wee just looks, potato-y.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do like that it's a functional craft, though. I think that's cool that they snuck that in because what they did was a very functional thing you can do to make your own Christmas cards.
Yeah.
So I like that they're staying with the theme of it.
But then they quickly turn over to, hey, why is Cher over by?
Yeah, he just walks away from Annette, and then Cher, of all people, is in this black dress with this sort of like gold buttoned black mini coat.
And Cher,
I don't know, very normal for the 80s.
Cher is like amazing, always has great energy. I don't think I've ever seen her happier than in this clip. She's just so excited to be on the show.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's almost like it feels, I don't think it was, from what I understand, it was one of the longest pieces to film.
Okay.
And I'm not exactly sure why. It had to do with lighting and the yelling from Secret Word.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's going over there, like he walks over. I'm getting very tongue-tied.
Yeah.
Pee Wee Herman walks over, and Cher just turns around after she's been talking with Conky, and she's there for the secret word.
And she's so excited to find out what the secret word's going to be.
Yeah, and the whole scene feels like they just happened to get a phone call saying, "Hey, we have Cher.
Yeah.
Do you want her on the show?"
Like, you feel like they only have her for like 3 minutes. Like,
yeah.
And you find out, because Cher's such a perfectionist, you have her for a long time. You get it right, but she knows how to make it feel like I was only there for 3 minutes. Like,
no, and she's a delight the whole time. She's got, because this is like, I think like right just before Turn Back Time Cher.
Okay, yeah, right after Mermaids.
Yeah, and so she's got big blown out black hair. She's just looking great. And so,
but you feel like you're hanging out with her family or something. She's like, she's got her hands on her cheeks, just so happy to be there.
Yeah, that's why it feels like that's why I think it's so funny
genuine and like,
yeah, that it took so long to film, because it looks like they just filmed it in one shot. Because like she does the whole thing where like, they ask Conky for the secret word. You know how Conky does all that shaking. Right? Her and
she's
Pee-wee
just so excited.
are like shaking along with him. She's bobbing her head up and down. Just stuff that you normally
well, and
wouldn't see.
usually you'd have somebody come in of her caliber and it'd feel a little stilted. Like they're like, "Oh, I'll just work this into my schedule." This feels so natural, like she was a cast member. Like
that's what I'm saying.
Like she'd been part of the show.
It doesn't feel like
it feels so natural.
Celebrity is there.
Yeah.
Pee-wee gets the secret word, and he's like,
"Today's secret word is here." Now, you all know what to do whenever anyone says a secret word, right, Cher? Ah! That's right! For the rest of the day, whenever anyone says a secret word, scream real loud. Ready? Let's try it.
And so then he comes over and he tests it with her, and he's like, "Oh, hey, how's your Christmas?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, Pee-wee, it's my favorite time of year." And then they scream, but she it's so funny. She closes her eyes and screams, smiles. She's smiling. She's so happy. And then she's got to leave. And she's like, "All right, Pee-wee, see you next year." And then everyone screams again.
And Pee-wee plays all these puns. He's thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And it's so good. And it probably is one of my favorite drop-ins he has in the episode, because it feels crazy genuine, and it's really nice. And she's just so happy to be there.
Well, in this part with the Pee-wee doing the puns.
Yeah.
That was Cher. Cher was right there. In the same room as my chair. I hope I didn't stare. Oh, well, I don't care.
This is a nonstop show. You get,
because
she just walked out the door, folks,
and King of Cartoons walking right in.
Yes, you got the flowers. Classically, they announced the King of Cartoons. He comes right in. Blackula himself comes right. Dude, this guy is so tall.
Yeah.
By the way, when you see him compared to Pee-wee, and then Annette Funicello walks up.
Annette, she's like, "Can I?" I've always, and she feels so genuine too. She's like, as if she's like a fan and has been watching the show for 3 years. She's like, "I've always wanted to do this." It doesn't feel stilted. It feels sincere. She really wants to announce the cartoon.
Well, and that's again one of the reasons we originally focused in on doing this one, is because we've been promising that we're going to do Back to the Beach forever since True Beverly Hills episode. And, Annette and Frankie were in that. Pee-wee was on screen.
Yeah.
Right? Then they were together in Back to the Beach. And this is sort of their payback to him for being on that show. But
you can only imagine that after he did the scene in Back to the Beach, that she went home and just started watching the show.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird because their friendship must have gone on, because I can't find anything where these guys have been all previous.
He probably just showed up to her house every once in a while for a Skippy peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but it's so great to see them. But that is kind of one of the reasons we picked this, is because we wanted to do the connected trilogy of these three people being in movies together for seemingly no reason.
And then we always surprised and always finding ways to bring in the guest. Instead of the cartoon starting, it's Joan Rivers.
Yes, I thought that was so cool. Oh man, I miss Joan Rivers. She's so great, and especially early Joan Rivers. Her stand-up is dynamite.
And whenever she filled in for Johnny Carson, and then when she got her own show, she always had Pee Wee on those shows.
Yeah, there was a deep connection.
Yeah,
absolutely.
This was him giving back to her, definitely.
And it was great because they had Joan Rivers in the best place she's ever been, which is Hollywood Squares.
And she's got this great Christmas. I mean, she's a pro. It goes so quick, and then she opens up the sweater like it's Merry Christmas.
I know,
sweater.
and it was pointed out to me because I can't keep up with the religions of all the different people, but it's funny because this show does tackle Hanukkah, and Joan Rivers, I believe, is Jewish.
Yeah.
So it's really
a famously Jewish comedian.
Good sport of her to wear the giant
Merry
Christmas sweater.
Yes.
She puts her arms out like they're wings,
and it's a big white oversized
sweater, a giant white sweater with in red letters. It says "Merry Christmas" in cursive, but it runs the length of both arms.
But it feels so natural too, because it feels like her's just showing off a fabulous outfit.
Exactly, but it also feels like wardrobe threw that on her real quick.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, this is kind of fun," and she was excited to show it off. Like, look at this funny thing.
And you can only imagine Hollywood Square audience for they're like as if they took a break for a moment to film this. You could only imagine an audience, like she's performing for an audience. Like she's just, that energy is there.
I loved it.
And it is funny for us as kids, because we were both kids in that time. Like Joan Rivers was really famous for us. Like we knew who she was, even if we didn't like know much.
Yeah.
You know, she was more famous for being famous. None of us were really staying up late at that point and watching her on the Tonight Show and stuff. But yeah, she was amazing.
I don't know. Yeah, if Johnny Carson had retired permanently, I think she could have done probably a good decade run on that show. She was a great host.
She definitely should have taken that over,
Yes. And then you had some information about the cartoon that played.
Yeah, so then right off the bat,
we're going to play the cartoon
Right
now.
off the bat, we go to the cartoon. And so this was just a little snippet of a cartoon called Christmas Comes But Once a Year. And it's a color cartoon that they had turned black and white for the episode. It was one of the rare chances where they got to have a small edit. And it was a Max Fleischer cartoon directed by his brother Dave.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it was Professor Grumpy playing Santa Claus, and this Professor Grumpy, this is the only time he appeared outside of a Betty Boop cartoon.
Yeah, that's the one thing I did have too, is that, that he was a character that was in a Betty Boop cartoon. I also had that it was December 4th, 1936 when it first came out.
Yeah.
And so
they're at the orphanage, and he's taking all this junk, and he's turning all this like random junk into like Christmas presents.
Yeah, it's worth a watch for the entire cartoon.
And then moving it along, we pop right into...
He's moving me along like Pee-wee's moving his guests along.
And moving along, all of a sudden it's Billy Baloney, and he's taking the moment that Pee-wee's not there for a second to be like, now it's the Billy Baloney Christmas special.
I love Billy Baloney. I like that it's funny because he gets his own credit in this at the very beginning, and yet he's just a doll.
Yeah, because as the camera pans wide or goes wide, it's like, oh, Pee-wee's back, and Pee-wee's actually...
Yeah, and it's funny to me because you have Randy, who is also a doll.
Yeah.
But Randy is a person.
He's a marionette. He's his own person.
But Billy Baloney.
He's like, someone might pull the strings, but I'm my own.
There's a contrast there, but it's like, it's never clear if Billy Baloney is supposed to be taken seriously like Randy is. Because Randy's like Terry or Mr. Kite or Clocky. It's like he's an individual. But I don't know if Billy Baloney's supposed to be that.
Yeah, if once you're outside the close-up, Billy Baloney falls apart.
By God, I'm here for it.
And Pee-wee quickly transitions again to it's snowing.
Yes, it's snowing. He's excited. He puts on the biggest, fluffiest, greenest snowsuit.
Yeah.
It's great. It's this giant fluffy snowsuit. It reminds me of when Randy can't put his arms down in Christmas Story.
Exactly, yeah. He's not the only one excited.
Annette and Frankie are also psyched. They're going to go outside.
They're so happy. This is part of the show where you go play in the snow.
Yes. And then they immediately get rebuffed because they haven't finished making their cards.
Pee-wee's like, you guys have a lot of cards to make, 1,000 in total, 500 each.
Yeah, so
you guys can't come and play until all your work is done.
Did we finish making all those Christmas cards, Frank, Annette? I'm sorry, then you'll have to stay inside until you finish. It's snowing! It's snowing! Yeah, but no!
But yeah, so he runs outside and he's out in the snow.
And in Pee-wee fashion, before he right away he spots yellow snow. And then we just pass by that to go do a snow angel.
And it's one of my favorite bits because he gets down and he's got all of this stage snow.
Yeah.
Right? And he's trying to do a snow angel and you can see
the material
underneath like coming apart.
It's so great too because he gets up from the snow angel and he's very aware that it didn't quite work. And it's like, well, okay,
This show is very self-aware. And then he says the greatest thing that I've ever heard, which is, hey, if you don't have any snow at home, just get 20 pounds of coconut shavings.
Yeah. But you're mentioning how self-aware this show was. This show was a great gateway between the 80s and the 90s because it's very self-aware like stuff would become in the 90s, but it's also very sincere like things were in the 80s. It's a perfect bridge. I think that's why it's lasted so long.
No, and I don't know why that line struck me as funny because I'd love to see a kid like end up doing that. Like he gets his parents' credit card, you know.
Let me get all the coconut you have.
And he brings it. He's just laying it all out. It's a funny bit because like that would work, you know.
And then Cowboy Curtis shows up.
I love Cowboy Curtis's costume. Like we don't need to say anything about Cowboy Curtis. He is who he is. It's great. You know, I mean, we can talk about him, but I want to talk about his clothes.
Yeah, his clothes he's got this amazing scarf.
Yeah,
this
almost
purple jacket.
The scarf has white cowboy boots on it.
Yeah.
And he's got these big giant snow gloves that still look like cowboy gloves. Oh, and anybody who has like a over the top costume gets their own Christmas version of the costume in here. And it's so cool.
And a funny fact here is we would not have the movie Boys in the Hood without Pee-wee's Playhouse because John Singleton, when he was at USC, was a PA on the Pee-wee Herman Playhouse show. And that's where he met Lawrence Fishburne. And so as he starts writing and putting together Boys in the Hood, this all comes together.
That's so funny to me. You said John Singleton?
John Singleton.
The idea that he's a PA on Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yep. You know? So yeah, I mean, there's so many great, you know, we could do a whole episode of Boys in the Hood and John Singleton, but this is a fact that I couldn't let go. Like this is one that I've been holding for a long time. And I think a lot of people know this one already, but it's just so great. You know, Pee-wee Herman, again, this is a great thing about Pee-wee Herman, like the most inclusive show ever. Like he brings everyone to the table, everybody from the show, from the guests, be yourself, do your things.
Yeah.
And it just attracts people from everywhere.
Well, and again, you know, to go back to the sincerity, like Larry Fishburne in this is in this wild costume. He's got to pretend to be this kid show cowboy.
Yeah.
And he doesn't act like it's beneath him.
Yeah, and this is a guy who was in Apocalypse Now in the late 70s when he was underage for that role. Like, I mean, he's done a lot of great stuff up to this point, and when he comes to the Pee-wee, he comes to play.
And that's great. I like the way you put that. He comes to play because he had some success before this. This isn't his breakout role, or anything. And
this isn't a breakout role. This isn't a role he was relegated to.
Yeah.
Because around the same time, he's also doing, you know, like School Days with Spike Lee. Like he's doing other, like he's just amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, he doesn't do School Days till 91. But yeah.
I filled you with my mystery tracks in the snow.
You sure did, Pee-wee. Ooh, mysterious. Hey, listen, Pee-wee. You hear that?
Yeah. It's the heavenly intonations of the Del Rubio triplets.
Sleigh bells ring, are you listening? In the lane, snow is glistening. A beautiful sight, we're happy tonight. We're walking in the winter wonderland. Gone away is the bluebird, here to stay is a new bird. He sings a love song.
They hear some sounds in the forest, and it's the famous Del Rubio triplets Oh yeah, and they're
Being in Winter Wonderland.
Yes, and they've got Santa hats on. They've got their famous hot pants, right? The green and red and yellow hot pants, and all three of them have the guitars and everything. And the Del Rubio triplets are the best. Like, I like that they're this sort of strange pop culture icon where you can't put your finger on where they started. Like,
Yeah.
You'd really have to dig deep to figure out where's the first time you saw these ladies, but you've seen them.
Because again, I think, they definitely had a career in the 50s and 60s. They've been on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But again, the whole reason we chose this episode and Back to the Beach was all that 80s nostalgia that was happening. They fit right into this.
Yeah.
They would come and sing. They do covers of Diva, Whip It. They made appearances on TV shows, like Married with Children had them as some of Peg's relatives.
Yeah, they were the part of the Wanker family.
Yeah,
and I think that might have been the first time that I saw them, or I saw them in this Christmas special, and then I remembered them
like when they
were
would start
on
popping.
the show.
They were also in a McDonald's commercial, but I cannot find that at all.
Well, because they did. The hard part is that we don't do the things that they used to do back then. Like, there used to be variety shows.
Yeah.
These guys traveled into a lot of different variety shows, I'm sure. Them and a few other people that we saw over the years, these strange little acts that would pop up.
Yeah. And some of the variety show stars had very varied past, like the Rubio sisters, the Rubio sister triplets, they came out of Cuba.
Which they do not look Cuban at all.
They called themselves the Rubio triplets because Rubio and blonde, and they get to the States and they start performing. But like, if you look at their Wikipedia page, they're related to Pocahontas.
Yeah.
But then also, like, their Aunt Edith was married to President Woodrow Wilson, and somehow, and they're just this great act. I mean, this was what, like, the whole Americana of like the 30s, 40s, 50s. It's just you had people coming from all different directions.
Yeah, and I love the bit because it's like they kind of never waver from what they're doing. They're three women who all play acoustic guitars, and they all sing basically the same words to a song. I don't know if they separate out their voices into like different octaves. I'm not sure, but it's just interesting. And I think are they true triplets?
I think so. And what's interesting too is, they're just another example of just so many people, like in Hollywood or showbiz or the arts or entertainment, is if you just have the sticking around power, you will find your moment. And the 80s, they definitely had a really good chunk where they were on top late night shows, did shows, were invited all over. They had an underground following, and a McDonald's commercial. I mean, just all different walks of life found their moment with them.
Yeah. No, they're hilarious. I love seeing them. And I think they were a really good addition to this because they feel like a Pee Wee Herman act.
Yes.
Voila! A snowman!
You know, Pee-wee, they say if you stare at a snowman long enough, he'll come to life.
Why don't you take a picture? It'll last longer.
It can't be understated, truly, like how they wrote this show to move. Because you go, okay, well, how are we going to get from the Del Rubio sisters to something else without being awkward? We'll have a snowman come to life and scare Pee-wee and Cowboy Curtis, and then have Pee-wee run off and then run into Little Richard, who is not coming to the Playhouse.
He's just there to try to ice skate.
Yeah.
He's got a pillow tied around his waist. So if he falls on his butt, it'll be okay.
It's so funny because he's wearing this great spangled black and blue sort of checkered number.
As you would if you were going to go ice skating.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He looks like
ready for the Olympics.
It looks like he's out of the Olympics, or if you were going to do Little Richard on ice.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so great because he is 100% Little Richard. He almost is acting like how his character acted in Down and Out in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Little Richard is trying to be out there. He falls down on his butt. Pee-wee helps him up. And he's just like,
I give up, I quit. If God had wanted me to ice skate, I would have been born with skinny feet and a little head. Oh.
And Pee-wee, in Pee-wee fashion, pulls off his shoes only to have ice skates on under his shoes.
Yes. And then he
does
proceeds,
like a triple Lindy on the ice.
Yeah. He proceeds to do gold medal ice skating. And then he pulls up to Little Richard and he says, it's not that hard.
Only as his stunt double Hans walks in.
And that's what I think is so funny is this character dressed just like him pulls up in great parody fashion where it's like, oh, it was this other guy the whole time, right?
Yeah.
You know, you love it's
the weapon of choice, Spike Jonze' weapon of choice when Christopher Walken does all this move and then pops back up from the camera and it's like, it was me the whole time.
Yeah.
Really.
And it's like in Spaceballs when they go,
"You idiots! These are not them. You've captured their stunt doubles."
Exactly.
So you got Pee-wee standing there. You got this guy named Hans standing right next to him, who's actually Charlie Tickner. And the reason he's such a good ice skater is because he got the bronze in the 1980 Winter Olympics.
Probably wearing
that exact
Little
same
Richard's
jumpsuit.
outfit.
And
now it's cold. You got to go back to the Playhouse and warm up.
Yes. And the best way to warm up is with a big showy number by still coming up artist K.D. Lang.
Singing Jingle Bell Rock or Jingle Bell Rocks.
Yes, she's singing Jingle Bell Rock in like the most unique way you've ever seen. I hesitate to sound hyperbolic, but K.D. Lang just jumps out on stage like a coked up crazy woman. But I'll give her a little bit more credit because she looks like she is having the funnest time of her entire life.
Jingle bell time is such a swell time to go gliding in a one-horse sleigh. You know what I mean, eh? Oh, giddy up, jingle horse, pick up your feet, jingle around the clock. Mix and a mingle and a jingling feet. That's the jingle bell. That's the jingle bell. That's the jingle bell. Oh, what's the matter, you?
She's in this dress where the top looks like a blue
Like
cowboy shirt.
Sequin snowflakes.
Yeah, and then it pairs down into a dress, and she's wearing these almost like miniature high top white boots.
Yeah.
And she is flailing and going nuts and just
everyone
absolutely loving her
and
time.
all the players in the Playhouse are going nuts watching this.
Oh yeah, everyone, Chicky Baby and what is it?
Daddy,
Cool Cat. And what is his name? Deadbeat Dog. I can't remember. But the puppet band is backing her up and they're having a great time. I'm having a great time watching it. And it's just so funny because she's singing the song like Grace Jones in a whole different way, just owning it her own way. And she's wiggling and she's doing these high bravado. From what I'm given to understand, by the way, she did that in one take.
Oh, wow.
That was the take you see is the take they did.
That was a lot of energy.
Yeah, she got it in one. And I thought it was interesting. I looked into it because I was like, K.D. Lang in 1988, how famous was she at this point? Because I had the impression that she was a little bit more well-known because she came out and did this big lavish dance. And from what I could tell, she was already working in the entertainment industry in the early 80s.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 1985 that she was given a Juno Award for Most Promising Female Vocalist. She's from Canada.
Yeah.
If nobody knew, K.D. Lang is from Canada. I know. She's a country artist. I assume that she's good old-fashioned American. But
they got country up
case.
there.
But so then she got a contract with Sire Records in 86, and that kind of started her off. And then again, so in 86, she dropped an album called Angel with a Lariat, and she became a more well-known country phenomena. And then in 87, she released a debut recording with Roy Orbison and they did a re-recording of his hit Crying.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so it's like, but she still wasn't on the scene.
Yeah. I don't think she got her big break until like the 90s is when I think.
So 89 is when she dropped Shadowland. And then it had 2 songs on it. I'm Down to My Last Cigarette and Lock, Stock, and Teardrops. But it wasn't until 1992 that she like really like hit it big.
But Pee-wee's eye for talent. I mean,
that's what I thought was so cool. After learning that, I was like, and especially the way she was performing, I'm like, again, this is just that scouring through all of the different possible talent out there in the world.
But again,
and saying this is a good fit.
Just like the 60s and 70s, some of those cameos on these holiday specials turned into the superstars of the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And same here, who you see, you may recognize, you may not, but eventually you will.
Yeah, and I thought it was awesome. Like she did a phenomenal job in this, and it's probably one of the best performances in the episode for me, just because it's just wild. And at the very end, she goes up and she kisses Terry on the nose. What does he have?
His beak?
What is he? Is it a beak? Is a pterodactyl have a beak?
I
don't know. And she kisses him on the beak, and she goes, "What's the matter, you?" Like, you just have to see it because it's coming out of nowhere. And I just think it's so funny. I like it. She comes over, she talks to the band, the puppet band, and then they end up getting her to say the secret word, and there's a whole big commotion about that.
Yeah, that's surprise. That's surprise.
She gets all surprised. Like, that looked real.
Yeah.
She just got all surprised real quick.
Like if Cher felt like she actually watched the show, Katie like, I didn't know that was like, whoa.
They did not brief her on the secret word at all. And so, then they come over here, and this scene is great because you have Randy, this absolute piece of shit.
The contrarian always.
Yeah, this guy sucks. But yeah, he's talking about Christmas and because everyone's putting up their stocking,
and nothing's gonna happen. I don't believe in Santa Claus. We're just doing this. What are we doing this for?
There's no such thing as Santa Claus.
Yes, there is too, Santa Claus.
No, there ain't.
Yes, so.
There's not.
Yes, so.
There's not.
Pee-wee, Randy says there is no Santa Claus.
Randy, please stop teasing Terry.
Well, I don't believe in no Santa Claus.
Fine. I'll just take down your stocking then.
Hey, wait a minute. Let's not be hasty here. Why don't you just go ahead and hang it up anyway? Just for decoration, you understand.
Notice in the background, so you see that one of them is green, and you're like, oh, that's Terry's stocking, and Terry's stocking is green with little nails on it.
That's amazing.
And it looks like a pterodactyl leg. And then Jambi, it's one of his Jambi hats that goes over him.
Cowboy Curtis has his boot.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, everyone's represented. And it's funny, I totally see why they had to rebuild the fireplace for this Christmas special, because they have like 36 socks on there.
Yeah.
And of course, Pee-wee puts on 2 gigantic socks.
One for each foot.
They're like, it's left and a right. And what would you say? Are they about 6 feet long each?
I would say so.
At least. Man.
Maybe 6'2",
Yeah. I like that they don't sacrifice anything in this episode, because then you go from having this great Christmas moment
right into a penny cartoon.
Right into the penny cartoon.
And I love it. While we decorate the tree, we watch old movies like Road to Morocco, the comedies. You know, Road to Morocco with Bob Hope and what's it called? And Dorothy the Moor. I just love her eyes.
We would always decorate every time of the year, and when you decorate, of course, you're watching, Road to Morocco, or Bob Hope.
I love that, because I believe that kids in the 80s used to absolutely be actively interested in watching old movies.
Well, because your parents would, like, for me, like, my mom would always have American movie classics playing, and it was the kind of stuff that if you, like, when I wanted to play Nintendo, we had one TV.
Yeah.
So if I wasn't there when a movie ended, a new movie would start, and then I have to wait till that was over. So, like, all the road movies, the Sinbad the Sailor movies, all that stuff would play, and you would just start watching it. And it's not like you were watching it because you wanted to, but you weren't looking away. Like, a lot of these movies, you were like, oh, this is
Yeah. Well, and I noticed too from like when you watch like 80s comedies, a lot of younger kids in, 12, 13, 14, they'd actually make references to a lot of these older shows and characters. That there's just a disconnect in that now. Like that, I would never see my kids, even if I show it to them, I could never see them making Marx Brothers reference when they're like 15.
The best way, I think, the best analogy I could use is the way people go through like TikTok and Instagram and you're just scrolling and finding just random stuff. When cable first hit, you had all these channels, but they didn't have enough content for all these channels.
Yeah.
So we were watching Marx Brothers, we were watching the Three Stooges, and just randomly, it wasn't like this stuff was scheduled television. It was just they were throwing anything on for like morning, midday, or late night because all they had for programming was prime time.
I know, it's interesting because it is almost like a roundabout where they filmed all this stuff and had it as their regular content for the 3 or 4 channels you got in the 50s and 60s. And now it's like we have to bring it all back out.
Like Comedy Central.
20 years later.
In the 90s, Comedy Central, they had a few shows that you'd watch like in prime time.
Yeah.
But like they would always just show reruns of like Monty Python. That's where most of us would go and watch Monty Python because they just had to fill up the airwaves.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think that's kind of how it has to be. It's like I wouldn't know what Mr. Ed was unless they had Nick at Night.
Yeah.
Because I could tell you, if you took Nick at Night away, there is nowhere else in my life that the show Mr. Ed would have been brought up.
Yeah.
Anywhere, ever. And they were cutting commercials with him, right? So they were taking I remember Nick at Night used to do this. They used to take pieces of like Mr. Ed's show and they used to slice it in to make commercials.
Yeah.
And so it's like they were not only showing this content, they were using it in advertising. So you were getting a double exposure.
It was Nick at Night and TBS, the Superstation.
Yes. Yeah.
Like those would
PBS
have all
for sure.
That would be where Leave It to Beaver and all the like.
And they would use pieces of the show in the advertising. So it's like giving it that double touch. It wasn't just, hey, this is going to be on and just using like text or anything. It was like they were making it enticing and giving it cultural value in the modern era. And so, that's interesting. And you just don't get that a lot anymore. It makes
and for
me
us, I
sad.
think for us, we were just young enough that we were just watching it because it was there. We weren't old enough to be like, I don't want to watch this. This is what mom and dad watch.
Yeah.
We were just young enough to we didn't know we knew it was black and white. So this is old.
Yeah.
But it's funny.
Yes. And it's good. And I don't know. I'm going to start trying to introduce some of these things with my kids.
What I do is I'll just have it like if we're building Legos or playing downstairs, I'll just have it on in the background, and eventually they'll gravitate to like maybe some of the old, Yogi Bear, or if you try to get them, if you try to sit down and get them to watch it, they right off the bat they're like, no, there's other better things on.
I know I found a middle ground with the show Teen Titans Go.
Oh, nice.
Because they do a great job of shoehorning in old Warner Brothers nostalgia. And it's like, they might not know what they're seeing, but it's like they'll later watch something that might be older and go, oh, I kind of get that reference. Like how, we do like later with like Looney Tunes, like when they'd replay Looney Tunes and they'd have a guy who looks a lot like James Cagney.
Yeah.
And you're like, who's this guy? And then later you'd see a movie with James Cagney in it somehow. And you'd be like, oh yeah, that guy. Okay.
That's like for
Humphrey Bogart.
My
do
kids,
the same thing.
Whenever we wait for the school bus, sometimes because kids will get impatient and they're like, is it coming or not? And sometimes you can hear it in the distance a little bit. And so I would wait and then I would be like, okay, let's see if we can magically make it appear. And I would be like, let's say, like, repeat after me. Mecca lecca hi, lecca hiney ho, lecca lecca hi, mecca hiney ho. And then we'd sometimes say it 1 or 2 times and then the school bus would appear. So that's like one of the ways I got them. So like when we started watching Pee-wee's Playhouse together, when that would come up, they'd be like, hey.
Yeah. Pee-wee does a check-in on our favorite it couple, Frankie and Annette.
Who have a pile of Christmas cards, but they're hungry and thirsty.
Frankie's got red paint on his cheek.
His sleeves are rolled up at this point.
And he's just sawing into a potato. He's just making a sawing motion. It's like, how many potatoes has he cut at this point?
And of course, if you complain to Pee Wee Herman that you're hungry and thirsty, what's he going to feed you?
Well, yeah, he's going to give you a giant plate of bread and water.
Back to work, you.
Which is great for the he's got this Christmas special where he's talking about how you're supposed to be kind to other people, and he's being so nice, and he's giving gifts and getting gifts. And the two nicest people, like relatively outside of Dinah Shore, are just being treated like dirt.
And so while all they get is bread and water, he heads over to the Countess.
I know, in a perfect contrast, he heads over. Countess the cow is at his back door,
all decked out in her tiara.
Yeah, and he immediately gives her this bedazzled giant bell for her neck.
And who's she got to show that to? Her friend, of course.
Her beautiful and wonderful friend, who is in this for like 4 seconds, but at least she's here live. Princess Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Who's also decked out in diamonds, rubies, emeralds.
Oh, man. She comes in and she literally says like 3 things. And it really feels like, remember earlier we said it was like Cher had like a few minutes and so she could be on set. This feels like Zsa Zsa had like 3 seconds.
Zsa Zsa feels like royalty. When royalty doesn't know who you are, but they come by real quick and go, I love your show.
Yes.
Pee-wee, this is so... And with nothing but sincerity. Like if Princess Di, who had never met you, who knew nothing about you, but made you feel welcomed.
Yes.
This is what Zsa Zsa does.
Well, and it's because it's crazy because it feels like they wrote no lines for her. She just came in and she's like, hello, Pee-wee darling, like you would say.
Yeah.
And then he's like, hello, Princess Zsa Zsa. And then she like is looking at this man that I don't know if she's ever seen.
Yeah.
And she's just like genuinely delighted at his character.
Yeah.
And she just goes, oh, Pee-wee, I love you. And then she's like, okay, I got to go. She leaves.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, because I've known Zsa Zsa Gabor forever. For anybody who doesn't know, Zsa Zsa Gabor is a famous socialite from the 1950s and 60s. And she has a sister who is not a twin sister, who I thought she was, named Ava Gabor. Ava Gabor was in a show called Green Acres. Both of them were actresses. Zsa Zsa started a little bit earlier than Ava, I think, but they both have basically been in the same amount of things. Personally, I like Ava Gabor better. That's just a personal feeling. I think Zsa Zsa got in trouble in the late 80s, early 90s for slapping a cop because he was
and
didn't like the cut
I
of his
love the
jib,
trouble
I
was
guess.
like only the kind of trouble like square parents who watch the news would care about. The rest of us were like, yeah.
She's a princess. I don't know what to tell you. But it's interesting because I was looking into the Gabor family. They have a sister who's even older named Magda. They are also immigrants. I think from Hungary. They came over here and their mother might have been an actress, like a small time actress, but they all became actresses. Zsa Zsa probably the biggest because she had the most marriages. Well, she had all the je ne sais quoi, but she also had the most marriages. Now, that's not to say the other two didn't have a ton of marriages. Magda and Ava Gabor were both married 5 times. Zsa Zsa tapped out at being married, I believe, not 10 times. It was 10. So let me give you a little bit of the reason she's a princess. So she had gone through multiple famous love affairs. So it had been reported that she had had an affair with Sean Connery, Richard Burton, Frank Sinatra, Henry Kissinger. And then she says that she's been married 9 times, but, it's that she says she's had 8 different husbands, but she's in fact had 9 different husbands. It wasn't 10. But yeah, she was married to Conrad Hilton. She was married to an oil tycoon. She was married to a financier. She was married to an inventor, an attorney. And so when her last husband was Prince Frederick von Alhot, a man roughly 30 years her junior. And as his wife, she was awarded the Princess von Holt title. Now, that's been contested apparently because
I'm sure some of the relatives were
well, because he was adopted. And so his ability to pass on the title of princess to her is in flux. So I'm not going to get involved. It's politics, baby. I don't get involved in that.
I guess if you're royalty, you'd rather be adopted instead of like a second first cousin to.
But so she was married to him in 1986. So it would have been 2 years into the marriage. And so that is why they're able to call her Princess Jaja. And why, when I was younger, when I would watch her in things, they just addressed her Jaja.
Yeah.
And because I was like, where is this princess coming from? Like, why is, because I was like, is it a pet name?
Before that, it was,
are Pee-wee and her good friends?
Yeah.
And it's just a pet name? But no, she's a legitimate
like Princess Monaco and Princess Jaja.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. And yeah, she was like this show. She is in and out. She's like, all right, Countess, we're out of here. Bye.
Pee-wee's not wasting any time because all of a sudden the phone's ringing.
Yeah, the phone rings and
who, of course,
he goes back over to the same phone, the video phone that he used for Whoopi Goldberg.
But now it's Diane Shore.
Yeah, Dinah Shore.
Dinah Shore.
So
70s icon.
I am going to tell you, I know basically nothing about Dinah Shore outside of the name Dinah Shore.
Yeah.
Do you know a lot about her?
I just know 70s and disco, and Dinah Shore is just somewhere in that mix. You would have saw her at Studio 54.
She looks like somebody's mom in this. Honestly, she looks like she has a son named Billy who plays baseball. We probably should have done more research.
We should have done more research on Dinah Shore, but all I know is anything in the 70s has some Dinah Shore reference. She was on this show. I think she had her own show.
Hey, Lisa, give us a rundown of Dinah Shore, please.
I feel like somewhere in there.
That's why we have you.
I feel like somewhere in there she's done something with David Bowie.
Yeah. I know. I mean, there were a lot of those icons sort of doing that. You take somebody who is like deeply wholesome and mixing them with like a somewhat dangerous, edge-pushing rock and roll personality. But so you
guys can call us out in the comments. We really should have showed up prepared for this one.
I am not worried about Dinah Shore. Very few people, I'm sure, are giving.
However, we are giving her the same respect that Pee-wee does.
Exactly. See, and so I am shown how much value people have by the way people are treated. And so Dinah Shore immediately gets bumped from her singing.
Well, she starts singing 12 Days of Christmas, which can be a long song.
Yeah. And so then this is interesting
classic
to me.
Call waiting, video call waiting.
Yes, there becomes a picture-in-picture moment where he is getting a phone call from none other than early Oprah Winfrey. This still has a talk show, Oprah Winfrey. And she actually at least has the can with the phone cord on it, unlike Whoopi Goldberg.
But unlike Whoopi, who's sticking around to make an act, Whoopi can't wait to get off the call either.
Oh yeah, Oprah can't wait to get off the call.
So say she has a phone.
Yeah, at least she has the can with the phone cord on it.
But unlike Whoopi, who actually plays out the scene and gives us something, Oprah cannot wait to get off this phone call.
Yeah, he basically says, oh, yeah, I've got Dinah Shore on the other line. He goes, okay, well, Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
She tries to do like a Pee-wee Herman laugh, and it comes off so weird.
Yeah, she does come off as sort of like the stilted celebrity who is just, I'm not really quite sure what my people sign me up for this.
Yeah, some PA handed her a can with a string and just said, hey, you're talking to Pee-wee Herman.
Yeah.
Go. And so that ends up getting back onto Dinah Shore, who's still singing 12 Days of Christmas. It's a great bit. And Pee-wee
ducks out
and then switches himself with a mannequin with a Pee-wee Herman costume on.
Yeah.
And do you know if that's like a real, like,
I think
sold in stores?
Yeah, I think
Pee-wee
that
Herman?
mask. I think that mask is right up there with the, your favorite guy who makes all the masks for Halloween.
Is that like a Ben Cooper Pee-wee Herman
Yeah, I don't
costume?
know if it's a Ben Herman, but I think it was up there because I remember people. I had a friend Vince when I was in elementary school who had that mask and would dress up as Pee-wee. You'd have
I like that. It's like kind of a subtle product placement in there.
Yeah. And this would become, we have the fruitcake gag. This will become a gag throughout the show. as well.
Yeah, he has multiple running gags going on. Outside of the word of the day, he's got fruitcake, which Countess gave him a fruitcake. So I think our fruitcake count is up to like 4.
Oh, is
it 5?
King of Cartoon gave him 2.
Oh yeah, okay, so
the,
4, 5,
Randy
6,
gave him a little one. He got
7,
a little one.
8. I'm gonna say he's at 8 now at least.
Sure, we're completely off on that, but okay.
All right. I'm gonna have to watch this all over again.
Yeah, so we will continue to hear the 12 Days of Christmas throughout the episode, but now we're off to Ricardo.
Yes, and Ricardo teaches us about hitting a piñata as part of his Christmas tradition.
Feliz Navidad.
Navidad. That means Merry Christmas in Spanish. Say it. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Right.
But when he's trying to speak Spanish and he keeps going, Feliz blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I feel like that might get red flagged.
But he has created
nowadays.
such a safe space and such an inclusive area.
Yeah.
Hopefully he could still pull this one off. But yeah, that would be.
Yeah, but I feel bad for Ricardo in that moment because he's like, sure, you nailed it. Thanks, Pee-wee. Appreciate you. And then why that's going on.
While he's trying to teach
Ricardo is a transition piece for my favorite beautiful lady.
Do tell.
Charo. Oh, man. And she comes in and she does a wonderful version of Feliz Navidad. Obviously, it's a get in and out, truncated.
It's a quick version, but it's done with sincerity. While she is giving her all, Pee-wee's in the background trying, making a mockery of trying to hit a piñata.
Yeah, it's incredibly embarrassing. He has this giant, super long stick. And Charo is in classic Charo fashion. Like, she's got the red hat, she's got her hair looks great. She's got I think her whole outfit is just Christmas red.
Yeah.
And she's giving it her all.
She's so happy to be there.
Yeah. And it's funny because
we're happy she's there.
Charo, the reason I'm glad they included her is that feels like she has a history of being a guest on many shows.
Yeah.
Talk shows, on other specials.
Yeah.
Right? You're always going to see, and Charo, And so I think it's great that they kept that tradition on this show. It's like, not only is she a great performer, I almost feel like part of her being on this special is the fact that she's the person you put on specials.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they had a great way of working her in,
then they have a fun way of, she's made a dessert for him. I can't say, but
yeah, I would be remiss if I tried to say what it was in Spanish, but it equates to fruitcake. So we're at least at 9 fruitcakes at this point, right?
But in the comments, if you counted more or less.
Yeah, you tell me, how many fruitcakes did you count? Because I feel like up until now, we're between 9 and 10, and they're piling up.
And then Pee-wee gets a little good joke. She says, Año. He's like, what's Año mean? Year.
They trick him into saying the secret word again, and I love that.
And now,
Cher's done the secret word, and Katie Lang's done the secret word, and now Charo has done the secret word.
Now we're moving on to Miss Renee.
Yes. I am a Pee-wee's Playhouse fan, and I definitely watched the show as a kid, but I will tell you right now, I was not watched every single episode. I know every single thing about the show. I was an enjoyable, casual watcher. I love the show, but it probably wasn't in my top, 10 or top 5 shows. I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for me that was like a Saturday must. I was like, loved Pee-wee, but
if I caught it on Saturday, I'd catch it. I liked it, but I think it has 5 seasons.
6.
If I told you, okay, see, that explains everything you need to know. I did not watch every single episode from all 6 seasons of this show. There's no way I did it. And I honestly do not remember Miss Renee.
Oh, really?
I don't remember her as a character. I don't know how often she was on, but I do not remember. She feels like a character that they added towards the end of the
Miss-
series run.
Miss Renee to me was always like sort of like a big sister. She was like that person who came in and had some interesting fact, and Pee Wee was like, all right, Miss Renee, like.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, and that's why it's. I'm just saying from my perspective, when I rewatched this and Miss Renee was in it, I was like, Miss Renee, I was kind of scratching my head, and I just don't remember her from the show. I remember every other character. I guess it's because she didn't have a thing like Miss Yvonne does, or like Cowboy Curtis or the King of Cartoons. They have very specific things. Or Reba the Mail Lady.
Yeah.
Miss Renee is a little bit more.
Miss Renee was more. Miss Renee
like ambiguous.
Well, yeah, she was a little bit more the grown up.
Yeah.
So
in this, she comes in and it's great. She comes in and he wishes her Merry Christmas, and she goes, "Oh, I don't celebrate Christmas. I'm Jewish."
And I love she stresses, and I'm proud of that.
Yes.
It's 1988, so it's still like, I don't know.
Yeah, that was such an interesting line to add.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, all right. I mean, that's fine. It's fine to be proud of being Jewish.
But
That's
then she
okay.
explains that, so you guys do get presents? Oh, we get presents. 8 nights of presents. And he's so excited, only to find out she's got 7 more fruitcakes for him.
Yeah, so he is now up to nearly 18 fruitcakes in
17,
the show.
18, 19, somewhere in that.
And then this is what I like about her is she's like, I'm here to sing the dreidel song with you. She turns to the audience and goes,
"Come on, everybody. It's the Hanukkah portion of the show, and we're all going to sing the dreidel song."
And these decorations drop from the ceiling, and then they sing the dreidel song. It was a fun, fresh take on introducing people to, Hanukkah and including it in the Christmas special.
And then we move along very quickly where he takes the dreidel down to the floor, spins it, flicks it right into the dinosaur, cave.
Right into the dinosaur family mouse hole.
The little mouse hole. I love that the dinosaurs are decorated for Hanukkah.
Yes.
Because it's sort of like, of course, the dinosaurs, they predate the New Testament. Of course they'd be Jewish.
And I like that, you find out something new about the dinosaurs. They're Jewish.
Yeah, and they're excited. And they know right away that dreidel, they open up that dreidel to get the chocolate coins.
Yeah. It was cool. And that's a nice, fun way of showing a little bit of culture that a lot of Midwestern people might not be aware of.
Yeah.
Without having to literally walk them through everything.
Yeah.
It's just a little visual touch.
You see, it's like the kid dinosaurs. What could be the pet dinosaurs? Everyone's very happy.
Yeah.
Festive. It's a great moment.
Yeah. And then you have.
We go right.
Well, this thing is moving like lightning, dude.
Because we're right back to Frankie and Annette.
Yes. We're right back. Frankie and Annette, they're over here. Because I believe they're done with all of their 1,000, their 1,000 cards.
And Pee Wee, like a manager you can't stand, it's like, oh, that's great. Have you made 1,000 envelopes? Nah, I'm just joking.
Oof. And then Dinah Shore, she's still singing. This thing is chaos. And then they cut to commercial. Cut back from commercial. And
it's
everyone,
time to light the tree.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting that they didn't already have the tree. Like Jambi didn't make the tree.
Yeah.
And so they've got this tree filled with garbage.
Yeah, like half of it, or the in the center of it is it's
one of those dome-topped barbecues.
Yeah, but straight out of a very iconic 50s
it's got the wheels on it.
Yeah.
It's got a train set in the middle. I like that they shoved an old TV antenna from the top of your house into the side of the tree.
And then a nice touch is Terry, the pterodactyl. They give him the star.
Yep.
To fly up to the top of the tree.
Man, and then piece of shit Randy.
And then Randy
unplugs
now
the tree.
Randy's already said he doesn't believe in Santa Claus. So now he's got to come at another angle.
Yeah.
And Randy's like, I don't like Christmas. It's all about the commercialism. And Pee Wee, this is what's great about this episode is everybody gets included. Pee Wee's like, of course Randy would think this is commercial.
Yeah.
And he did out of nowhere, we decide you don't know what the real meaning of Christmas is.
Yes. And so Magic Screen pipes up and shows some, which is funny for it's 1987 because this looks like vintage B-roll that they do of a Christmas pageant.
Yeah, and it's all, and they really did go into it. It's all about the Christ child and the story of, and so taking the commercialism out, taking whatever, depending on how you celebrate this holiday, everyone can come at it from their own angles, and they just give you a little overview of Joseph and Mary and baby Jesus.
Yeah, and I thought that was a nice touch because they're really hitting every single corner of people who just celebrate the gift giving and the Santa. And then, there's the people who do Hanukkah. There's the people who have certain traditions in Mexico. And he's really trying to hit up everything.
And what's great about Pee-wee, he brings everyone to the table. He brings such sincerity, but he's a showman. He still knows how to hit a little joke, so every time something gets a little too sincere, we then have a little comedic break.
Yeah.
And he goes straight from the Christ child to, what are you going to do with all these fruitcakes?
Cowboy Curtis gives him a fruitcake too. And he's like, well, suppose you don't really need another fruitcake. And he goes, nah, don't worry about it. I can use it. Like, what are you going to do with all those fruitcakes? He goes over, and he's like, he's got an art gallery that he's never had before because it's obviously a new set.
Yeah.
And he opens up these art gallery doors and there's 2 oily bow hunks in there. Probably the second most
all of a sudden he feels like Derek Farrell from the movie Blow. He's that character.
Yeah, so these sweaty bow hunk workers are in this room that is completely made out of fruitcake. By the way, the fruitcakes that are on the ground that aren't the fake wall pieces, those are all real fruitcakes that had been shellacked and put down there on the floor. They'd been donated from a local bakery.
Oh, wow.
Which is funny because they probably made them more edible after they shellacked them.
Yeah.
Sleigh bells! Sleigh bells ring! No! Sleigh bells! I hear reindeer on the roof. Do you know what that means?
You've had too much eggnog.
No, it means get out the milk and cookies! Hurry! Hey, look!
Why do we need a milk?
Santa Claus! Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, everybody!
It's Santa!
Merry Christmas, Santa!
And then he's, of course, pointing out that he hears sleigh bells and then Santa
It's time
comes
for cookies.
down.
It's time for Santa.
And I love that he brings Santa this gigantic plate of cookies and milk. And he's like, just how you like it.
Only for Santa to have to give a little bad news.
Yeah.
Pee-wee, there's no toys for all the other children.
Yes, Pee-wee apparently had asked for so many toys.
Which you knew when you saw that list coming out of Jumpy.
Yeah, that there was no toys for anybody else. And Santa needs to have all of his toys. That, which I think is funny because literally all of them, you need to have all of his toys. He doesn't even get one. You had not put in the budget one toy for Pee-wee.
But consolation prize.
Yes.
Pee-wee gets to go.
Well, yeah, Pee-wee. So Pee-wee walks over and he has his Linus lights please moment where they put a spotlight on him. And it's him with his face contrasted on top of him, remembering how he had said that Christmas was for thinking of others.
Yeah.
Which is very nice. And honestly, it's totally sincere. And I like it. I'm glad they played it straight. It makes you feel really good. And then he comes back over and just like you said, Pee-wee, before about doing the good jokes, he comes over and he goes, all right, I guess they can have my presents. And then he's like, one more thing. And he's like, what else do you want? He goes just straight from being just very kind, very nice. Just like, oh, Jesus, what else?
Another favor? Well, would you ride the sleigh with me?
Yeah. And of course he was. Of course he was going to ride the sleigh. You think that Pee-wee Herman was going to get out of this special without riding with Santa Claus somewhere?
Yep.
It's nonsense.
And this is where he's reminded he has one more wish. And this is where my daughter's like, Daddy, he can wish for the toys now. I'm like, oh, come on.
No, and this is where it's probably the most sincere is he comes down and he addresses the audience and he says he wishes for peace on earth and for everyone to have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year!
And all of a sudden we're taking back full energy. Everyone's screaming and cheering.
Yeah, they bring it all down.
It's the end of the episode.
Oh, yeah. No, and it's great. And, they show him flying away with Santa. And it's interesting effect because I don't know if you can find it unless you have it on a videotape that somebody recorded in the 80s. But when you get a version of it now, he and Santa, first of all, Santa, he says, Santa, you're the best. And then Santa says, I know you are, but what am I?
I love that.
Killer line. And then when they get on the sleigh and they leave the side of the Playhouse in Santa's sleigh, and it's kind of this stop motion sleigh with the reindeer, and they fly away. And in the original version, they flew past a TWA plane.
Oh, nice.
And so because they didn't want to pay TWA royalties after the initial television show, when they cut back to commercial after the first time it aired, if they were going to air it again, they just replayed him flying out of the Playhouse again. And then they would run the credits. So that's why you see it twice in every iteration that you can either see on, Pluto TV or when you buy it.
Yeah.
Or probably when it's on video, because they didn't want to pay those royalties again. But I'd love to see the original just for contrast.
There has to be somebody who has, their little.
Yeah. That's Pee-wee's Christmas special. And I thought it was really good. I thought it was one of the better Christmas specials I think I've seen for entertainment value in a long time.
Yeah, I think he did a good job of like keeping it like the show that it's, the Pee Wee Herman show, but then also bringing an audience, like bringing back some of that 60s and 70s, like camp and quiche and just fun Americana, but doing it in such a sincere way.
Yeah.
That there's humor, but like you sincerely walk away from the special being like, this is the way it should have been done in the 50s and 60s or 60s and 70s, where you just bring everyone to the table with respect and everyone gets a moment and everyone comes as they are. And, this to me is just one of the best like holiday specials.
I have more respect for it now than probably then, because I'm old enough to get the jokes I may not have gotten when I was a kid and find value in those. But I feel like I'm still young at heart enough to really appreciate the child parts of the show and the complete sincerity that everything is done with.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I feel like this specific episode bridges Pee-wee's original stage show and what he was trying to do with that with the total child sincerity of Pee-wee's Playhouse proper.
Yeah.
And having kind of a middle ground where he's being cheeky and adult, but at the same time, he's never losing the sincere focus of the show, which is to have fun, make people laugh and make people learn a little bit, and be an inclusive place for everyone.
Well, that's what I think as a kid is like I grew up on Pee-wee, and at the time I didn't know just how different it was from everything else, because like I hadn't been informed in another world. Like Pee-wee, along with lots of other stuff from the 80s, informed the world that I would grow into. So it's not till you get older and you start to see that things weren't this way before, that you really appreciate it. But Pee-wee, I think that's the reason why so many people were still fans of Pee-wee for so long, even after his scandal and everything, is because if you grew up on the show, it was nothing but, just wholesome and engaging with a little edge, but like true sincerity.
I am a person who's enjoyed all sorts of type of humor. Like I can appreciate all the stuff that Troma puts out, right?
Yeah.
I like Kevin Smith's stuff. I like horror movies. I enjoy things that are gross and weird and push the edge. And yet, as I get older, I also deeply appreciate sincerity.
Yeah.
And I appreciate people who don't feel that they need to do something weird or gross that doesn't fit the scene just to press buttons.
Yeah, like there's a place for both, but it is a real art watching somebody ride that line and do it in a sincere way, like where he's truly engaged and likes the things he's showing, but is also very self-aware. And that's why I think Pee-wee's Playhouse was such a bridge between the 80s and 90s. Like I said earlier, was he understood, he was very self-aware and understood irony, but also had the sincerity of the 80s.
Yeah.
That it was just this perfect bridge of where we were and where we were going.
Not bad. Not a bad episode.
Go check it out if you haven't seen
Not a
it.
bad episode.
Rediscover it if you haven't watched it recently, or just keep watching it over and
Honestly, there are so many different Christmas specials to watch now, and so many of them are good. I would say if you don't have a lot of time, the 48 minutes is so digestible and it moves like a beast. This thing just goes, it starts and it goes.
Matt said it best. They probably had all watched the Star Wars Christmas special and knew what not to do.
Yeah, just get them in and get them out. And I really appreciate it. And I hope you all appreciate it too. I think that's going to wrap up this Christmas special, our Christmas special about Pee-wee's Christmas special.
I hope we
here
lived
at
up to
Shelter
it.
from Oblivion. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to be the podcast version of fruitcake this year.
Oh no.
Everyone's just going to pass on us. Yeah.
And I think no holiday special is complete without a running gag.
Yes.
And so I bought a little present for you.
Oh no. Okay. Folks, Andy has, oh God, this thing is heavy. Andy has handed me, you can hear this. Oh God. It's a real fruitcake. Oh man, it has the cherry in the middle and everything. This thing weighs about 46 pounds. It's as big as a baseball, and I could probably throw it through a storefront window.
I wonder over the years if they get heavier and heavier. Like, I still have this theory that only one batch of this was ever made, and then people have just been regifting this for like almost a century now.
These are never meant to be eaten. They're meant to be passed on. If you eat it, you're actually being very insulting.
Yeah.
You are meant to now, I need to rewrap this and give this to someone else now.
You're really just giving it, for the reaction.
Yeah. We really appreciate everybody coming down to the shelter today. We hope that your holiday season is warm and bright, and we're being very sincere about that. I wish for you to go to Instagram and Facebook, shelter.from.oblivion, and leave us some feedback, like our posts and share them with other people, put them on your stories, and just keep enjoying what we're doing. And we got a lot more in this next year, and it's going to be a great time.
Let us know where we slipped or what your fruitcake count is, and keep us honest.
Right. And tell us who Dinah Shore is. Clearly, we have no idea.
Shameful. That's
all right. Lisa, why don't you go ahead and take us out?
Why don't you go ahead and stop telling me how to do my one job? God, I'm out of eggnog. Ugh, it smells like pine needles and hot cheese down here. I bet those two will give me that fruitcake as my bonus. Bye, everybody. Hope everyone who is still listening has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Ho, ho, ho!